And oh, I'm failing pretty hard today. What's up, guys? Y'all can hear me but can't see us. Epic fail moment today. All right, here we are. There we are. No longer have technical difficulties. Cross my fingers. Really, very unfortunate start there. My editor entirely crashed when we were doing the pre-roll, which was horrendous, horrible. But welcome to back to Mixed Media Live. If you're listening on Discord, YouTube, Twitch, Rumble, wherever you are, shout out to you. I love when we have people stopping by. And so, yeah, if you're new here, Mixed Media is a live show happening every Monday at 9:30 p.m., where we talk about everything basically art related, pretty much. We each come at it from our own different angles of music, filmmaking, gaming, and whatever we can throw our hands at, basically. So yeah, I guess we'll introduce ourselves while I continue to scramble to make sure the stream is healthy. So my name is Irving Nestor. I'm a filmmaker and media entrepreneur.
Hi, I'm Ben Costello. I'm a flute player and a media composer.
I'm Nathan Nestor. I'm a 3D modeler and a game developer.
Hey guys, I'm Resh. They call me Reshy P. I am a producer, songwriter, and looking to get into video game music, hopefully full-time in the future. I've done some part-time work in the past, but full-time songwriter and producer for sure.
And now the live chat is up on the screen, so that was what was missing. Fixed it. Sweet, awesome. Now, if you're watching live and you wonder, why the heck don't I see this stuff or hear this stuff when I'm listening to the podcast version of this? That's because there's a podcast version of this. It's not just a live stream. So if you head over to mixedmediapodcast.com, there's a link to pretty much every platform that you can think of on the podcasting end, and then every video platform that matters. So you can go check out our things over there where we have the edited versions of these streams without all the mess ups, basically. So I'm going to continue to freak out a little bit as I try to fix this. So why don't you guys take it away with some of the news items of the week?
So for me in film music, not much noteworthy this week. We did get the release of Lightyear and the score to Lightyear by Michael Giacchino. Obviously doing most of the big Pixar films still. So I haven't heard the score yet, but I'm told that it is. I've heard good things about it, so I'll have to listen to that at some point and watch the movie at some point. So yeah, that's probably the biggest score release in the past week.
In terms of the gaming world, I once again forgot to look up my news. That being said, today and earlier today, I have been working once again on my little bot that goes and scrapes all these gaming news websites I was talking about before. I have gotten those files off of the drive that was not accessible before, so that's cool. That being said, it's been sort of killing me to get it to work, and I guess I'll go over that later when we get to like how our weeks have been and whatnot.
Yeah, interesting thing to add. You guys might have talked about this the last time you did a podcast, but interesting to see that the Grammys are now including a gaming award segment. So that could be good or bad depending on your take on if the Grammys are, actually musically worthwhile. Might be the wrong word, but if they actually award musicians and not just popularity. But it's good to see gaming in some way will get some notoriety, whether that means in a good way or bad way. At least gaming is getting some news that non-gamers will see,
Yeah, last week I said there was some news I wanted to say and I forgot what it was. I think that's what it was.
No, I'm sorry, I totally stole it then.
Yeah.
Yeah, what are you guys' thoughts on that?
I think it's cool, at least in the sense that it legitimizes like gaming as an art form more, which is not a lot of the way it's portrayed to a lot of people. It's just sort of like pure like time wasting sort of endeavor to a lot of people. So it brings it to the forefront as a medium instead, which I think is pretty cool. Whether the Grammys is good or not, I have zero idea. I have never watched a single Grammys, so I have no idea.
Well, that might be a statement in itself, right?
Precisely.
Do you know if they're gonna consider individual tracks or like entire game soundtrack?
Yeah, that I haven't looked into. I would imagine that they're probably going to be a suite of awards, not just one, you know. So maybe there will be a best track, but it might be per genre or it might be per score, right? Because it's difficult to compare ambient atmospheric music that you might hear in Horizon Zero Dawn versus an actual score that's completely composed like you would in Nier Automata. You know, so it's difficult to compare those two, but like the Game Awards themselves, they only have a game best music. They don't have a best track, like you're saying, and that's a video game centric award show. So my hope would be that
Right.
there is a category for best track, but maybe genre specific. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The question that I would have is who's going to be judging that?
Mm-hmm.
Do the
How do the
Grammys work
Grammys
by
I
currently
those?
don't know. I don't know
Yeah.
how the Grammys currently work, but I think it's like it's a panel for sure. I know that much. I don't know if it's former composers or producers or whomever, but I'm pretty sure part of it is audience vote, right? Unless I'm making that up.
I have
That's
zero
gonna be
clue.
interesting if that's the case. I don't know.
I don't pay any attention to Grammys.
Yes,
so I don't
all
know.
of us are clearly in the know on this.
Well, so is there like not like a union? Is it the Grammys run by a union, a publication? Like, what is the Grammys run by? Because the Oscars is run by the Academy, but like what is the Grammys run by?
I think it's the RIAA, or maybe the Hollywood Film
It
Association.
says that it says for the Grammys, the Academy invites over 2,300 voting members. I'm
Cool.
not really sure how they're chosen, but
Wait, so it's also the Academy. The Grammys are run by the Academy?
it would seem so.
That is entirely news to me, and I feel really stupid for not knowing that.
Well, in that case, they cannot be the judges for a
It's-
gaming award, right? They're going to have to probably make a new panel or some kind of sub panel for that.
No, don't don't underestimate the Academy's
You think?
ability to throw people who know nothing about something
Oh,
in
correct.
as
Yeah,
voters.
Yes.
I mean, you have everyone and anyone voting on like best score, as Ben knows.
These might not be the same Academy, by the way. I'm reading. The full name is the Recording Academy.
Oh, okay, so it's different. There you go.
All right, yeah. It's specifically for musicians, producers, recording engineers, and other musical professionals. So these are different. This is a different academy. It's not
Makes a lot
the
more sense to
Academy.
Not the Academy. Some Academy.
Yeah, exactly. Was that it for gaming stuff, or did you have anything else to add?
As far as news, other than personal takes on recent releases or recent gaming scores or soundtracks, nothing really that comes to mind other than that major thing.
Sweet. On the news front, just a few headlines. I first saw I saw the whole trailer for the new Elvis movie when I was in the theater for Top Gun. And I didn't know. I knew it was happening. I knew there was an Elvis movie happening. But what I didn't know is that it was a Baz Luhrmann film, which, if you're familiar with Baz Luhrmann at all, you'll know immediately with just the font that they use in the film trailers, which is just always some Art Deco font, because his whole style is basically one big Art Deco thing. Now, I've seen only 2 Baz Luhrmann films. I saw The Great Gatsby, and I saw, is it literally called Romeo and Juliet, or is it like a longer title? I don't remember. But he did a Romeo and Juliet rendition. And he's a really quirky dude. I've listened to a bunch of interviews from him. I have an unpopular take in that I really love The Great Gatsby. Actually, I think that's actually a pretty good film in my humble opinion. But I know that's a polarizing thing to say.
You're referring to the most recent one, the one that
Yeah,
doesn't take into account the year in which it takes place and the year in which Rhapsody in Blue was written.
yes, I know.
And other musical historical issues.
Inaccuracies.
Yeah, I know. I still have my opinion. Okay, like I think all those things were done knowing that they were inaccuracies. That's my hot take, and just not caring because they wanted to be exactly how they wanted to be, which is a pretty fantastical version of The Great Gatsby. Very colorful, that's for sure. But I love Leo's performance in that. That's actually one of my favorite performances of his. There's some legendary moments in there, but that is a hot take for sure.
We could break down the scene where we actually get Rhapsody in Blue, and we could do that as an entire episode, breaking that down and whether that is effective or not. At least in my opinion, because probably my opinion doesn't match with anybody else's in the world, but it could be interesting.
Well, I mean, that's what we're here for, right? Is to have opinions and share them, even if people don't care about our opinions. That's okay.
You know what? That's next week's episode. We're gonna look at two scenes. We're gonna look at the freezing Han and Carbonite from Empire Strikes Back, and we're gonna look at that scene. That is next my next episode.
Honestly, that sounds absolutely fascinating.
What is effective or not about those scenes?
That sounds absolutely fascinating, and I anticipate that'll be a great episode. So I'm glad that we talked about The Great Gatsby to get that. Sweet. I skipped over the part where I was supposed to ask how our weeks were. I went straight to the news, which is boring. Oh, wait, did I have any more things to say? Let's see. There's the Elvis movie that's coming out soon. I think that was it. Yeah, there's not that much terribly interesting happening in this, at least last week, in the film world. There's some box office numbers. Nothing terribly interesting to me. I know the new Jurassic World movie did very well, but I don't know how much of a statement that is of something noteworthy of a movie, or just how terrible the state of cinema is right now. So, yeah, I don't have much to add besides yuck. So, there you go. But how are you guys this weeks? What you guys been up to?
I've been furthering my self in my Linux journey, and I'm in pain at the moment, so that's cool. I spent a long time learning about what I did not know, I guess, in regards to this. And so a lot of it, I've been doing a lot of transitionatory stuff with getting my workflows to work correctly on Linux and whatnot, with the lack of Windows applications, but also making use of nice Linux applications that are very nice. The issue, though, is, I am missing the Adobe Suite, and this is an issue. So I was doing some 3D modeling. I was like, I got to make a texture, right? And I was like, I don't have Adobe Illustrator anymore. So I do have a Windows virtual machine I was talking about before. I could use that, I guess. It's just that that'd be highly disruptive to my workflow to, open it. And the way I have things set up with single GPU pass-through, I'm not going to get into it, but it makes it take way longer than it should to open the VM and get back with my Illustrator or my vector file, whatever, right? I've also had to transition from music and stuff like that. Because there are only a handful of DAWs that'll work on Linux, and I also don't really want to use a virtual machine for it. So yeah, I'm kind of don't have all too many software choices. So yeah, that's what I'm dealing with right now. I'm trying to figure that all out. I'll probably end up buying another drive and dual booting Windows and doing that.
Sounds technical.
Yeah, perhaps.
I was gonna say I understood like 40% of that, but enough to be like, you know what? Sounds like you're doing some serious work. So good luck. You know,
Yeah.
Thank you, thank you.
it's my expert input.
Yeah. For me, last weekend was Father's Day. So Sunday was Father's Day. So I was over at our place. Somewhat of a surprise. It was really fun. Got to see some family, which was good. Also, the interns, shout out to any interns who might be listening right now or doing whatever the heck they're doing. There are some people on
Editing the
shift right
podcast.
now, believe it or not. Huh?
Editing the podcast.
Or editing the podcast. There you go. They're finally starting to get past the learning phase and sort of entering the now we're like actually doing real stuff phase, which is kind of awesome to watch. So hopefully this week or next week there'll be some sort of explosion in the stuff that's happening at the company, which is really exciting. Sup 909 Crime? Yeah, Mixed Media Mondays. I forgot to say that. That's the catchy phrase that 909 Crime came up with. So, yes, Mixed Media Monday. All right, how about the rest of y'all?
For me, I don't know. I've been absorbing a lot of different, music and stuff like in films and such. If you paid attention to Discord, I watched season 1 of Vikings Valhalla, which was kind of an unusual choice for me. But it's not. I wouldn't say it's good, but it's not nearly as like violent as I expected it to be. Interestingly enough, musically, I don't know. Like I wanted to watch it just for the music because I really like Trevor Morris, but I've never like actually heard any of his stuff in any actual TV show. So it was kind of like it was just there, I'm sure I think the music is much better than its presentation in the show, but it's good. I really have not paid enough attention to TV music, so just good for me to do that. Yeah, and I guess also kind of spending some time studying the intermezzo from the opera by Franz Schmidt, Notre Dame. Interesting piece of music, very kind of interesting harmony and string writing. So
cool.
Yeah, you guys are doing some interesting stuff. I'm probably going to be the most boring of the lot, but I, like Irving said, I spent Father's Day not with my family because my parents live in Florida, but on a Zoom call, much like this. Wasn't as podcasty, but we caught up with some family. It was nice to see everybody yesterday. And as far as gaming, I don't know if you guys have heard of this, but I'm a big indie game guy, so I like to scour not necessarily the single A or like shovelware, but like the double A market. So I like to find the hidden gems, and it's not like I'm some discoverer. I use resources to find them, but I pay attention a lot to the OSTs in those games because it's usually one guy or one girl. So as someone who is looking to get into that industry and has been a little bit in that industry, it's inspiring when one guy, or one girl or one person can put together the entire OST for, a fairly mid-budget but well-received and well-reviewed game. And I'm referring to one called Nobody Saves the World. I don't know if you've heard of that. It's very indie, right? But came out this year. It's actually co-op. You can play the entire thing in multiplayer, which I did with one of my buddies, and it is like absolute blast. I mean, doesn't matter what I gave it, but I gave it a 9 out of 10, and I've like pretty thoroughly decide on my ratings with like a tier system and different categories go into it. And of course, the OST is a big part of my rating scale, being someone who makes music, right? And it's actually what's interesting about that. The reason I brought it up is not only is it a phenomenal game and reviewed really well, the composer of the soundtrack is Jim Guthrie, who maybe some of you have heard of him, but he did the whole Planet Coaster OST. And it's not in the same vein at all, but Planet Coaster's OST is very like almost like John Mayer. Like it's just literally like poly bridge type, you know, rhythmic guitar in the background that you pretty much ignore. But when it comes on, it's very nice and soothing and puts you in a good mood. This OST is like ditches basically all the acoustic instruments. It's almost all electronic, but really, really cool choices and melodies. Like the environments you go to are pretty varied. So there's like a desert and the very fitting desert track that he put together. There's like an ominous, dark, overtaken, almost hell-like world where the track in this region is like very RuneScape, but in a dark, like melodious but dark way, and it's really, really juxtaposed because you can be in those two areas like in a second, between the two. So had a lot of fun with that. I thoroughly enjoyed the OST. It's on Apple Music and Spotify, so I've been listening to it. But highly recommend it, even if you won't play it. The OST is absolute 10 out of 10.
Sweet. Sounds pretty cool. Now, that's a good segue into basically the topics for the day. So basically, we've got Resh coming up first. He'll be talking about some video game music stuff. Ben will be sort of leading the questions there as our resident music person. And then we'll go on to Arguing with Reddit, where we'll discuss some hot takes that I haven't seen yet. I haven't seen any of them this time, so I'll be reacting live to those. And then the last thing that we'll do today is we'll talk about AI in gaming and sort of the future that beholds. So if you're listening to this in post and you're like, well, the video ends here or the podcast ends here, that's because we split this up, and you'll see this in your feed in the next coming days, weeks, maybe, if we're really behind on editing, whatever it is. And if you want to see those, you've got to subscribe, follow, whatever the button's called on whatever podcasting platform you're on. Hit that button. And if you're on a podcasting platform that has ratings, likes, or whatever, it's always helpful for you to leave a comment, leave a rating, and especially if it's not a good rating, especially then, let us know what we can do to improve, what you would like to see from a show like this, or rip into us, because at least then we can improve. That'd be great. With that, I've got to get a shout out to two people: 909 Crime, who I still think is in the audience, so shout out to you, and Robert Sharma, who is probably not here right now. Both of y'all are great supporters at mixedmedia.locals.com. Y'all help the show continue to chug along, continue to grow, help justify us continuing at all. And so thank you so much for your support and your help. If you want to join them, you can go to mixedmedia.locals.com, or you can go to mixedmediapodcast.com and find the links there, where you can figure out where you can get these perks right here. So these perks are awesome. Get stuff reviewed. And surprisingly, 909 Crime, who says he's here, hasn't used this perk yet, but I feel like he would enjoy it, so this is encouragement. Is that this whiteboard right here is live. You can draw on this thing. So if you want to draw and doodle to your heart's content as we're talking and pass along messages that way, I think that's rather fun. So you can go ahead and do that if you support us at mixedmedia.locals.com. So with that long spiel, we're going to go to our first segment. All right. Are we ready to go? Sweet. All right, here we go.
Mixed Media Music.
All right, welcome to Mixed Media Music. This is our segment of our lovely podcast, Mixed Media, where we focus on all things in music, commercial music, art music, whatever you all of that stuff. And today we are going to be having a kind of conversation and a little bit interview with Reshy P. We got him down there on the bottom right corner of your screen if you're watching live, and if you're listening, well, you can just listen to him. Welcome to our show. If you watched the introduction to this, or if you've been watching live, hear a little bit about our guests. But why don't you introduce yourself a little bit again for people who are just tuning in for this episode. Yeah, tell us a little bit about yourself and kind of your background and what you do in video game music.
Yeah, sure. So thanks for having me again. This is awesome to be on speaking with fellow artists and musicians alike. But basically, my name's Resh. I go by Reshy P as my musician or stage name, whatever you want to call it. I'm a songwriter producer. I've been songwriting and producing for the better part of 13 years now. For 6 years, I was full-time, so I was a recording producer. I was an executive producer on a full commercial record, available on iTunes and Spotify. Not to plug myself, but it's something like 7 years old, so it's it's still there, but obviously it's not something super recent. At least we can say we have a product and we have something you can listen to. That was more on the band front, so I was the executive producer. I was the primary songwriter for that whole record. Took like a year and a half to finish. I learned a lot while I was interning in New York City. But I was always a big music guy in high school, then was going to go to med school and then ditch that. And I became a full-time musician. And now I do it more part-time than I used to. But like I was saying earlier in the intro, I still consider myself a full-time musician. It's more of which outlet do I want to go to? And you mentioned in video games, and joining my two great loves for gaming and music just seemed to make sense to do them both at the same time, because why not? And mainly two reasons for that. The biggest reason, well, one of the biggest reasons was in 2020, actually, when everyone was stuck at home. Gaming overtook, you guys probably know this, gaming overtook movies and TV as the number one revenue generating media. I think in the US or maybe the world, I don't remember the stat. But if that's the case, there are going to be more and more games being made, and more games means more and more OSTs, soundtracks, and musicians that need to make those soundtracks, and it's not going to be the same people over and over. Very similar to voice acting, that industry is blowing up too. So I wanted to ride that wave a little bit. And the second thing is because I'm a little bit older, and I don't necessarily have a musician frontman look, even though I've always wanted to be like the frontman of a metal band.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, this is not, this is not that marketable. Whatever, that's a separate thing. But the point is, you can be 20, you can be 50, you can be 80, and make video game OSTs, and people really won't judge what the artist looks like, right? Because it doesn't matter. And that's my biggest thing is I can be confident that the work I'm doing is speaking for itself, and not my look or who I am to the media, or who I am based on aesthetics. And I think that's a beautiful thing, to be able to just tap into your musical talent and your musical soul and let that speak, and not your external appearance, if that makes sense.
That's interesting. I've never thought of that. I think that's probably true. I don't think people don't know what Desplat looks like, right? They probably don't know who he is either. But if you do, you probably don't know what he looks like. Yep. And you just I like music, The Shape of Water, and whatever. That's an interesting point there. I've never thought of that.
Yeah, I think that came to me, I guess a little bit as I got older, but more as as I was speaking to the Grammys earlier, now that they have a gaming segment, it's as someone who was in the music industry and nearly broke into it, I saw, call it the best and the worst of it, and the worst of it is not pretty, and aesthetic pun intended. It's very much based on, can we market this person beyond the music, right? Because the music almost takes a back seat when you're first starting out, and it's totally backward from what you would hope it would be, So at least with a medium like this, the music takes a backseat to the game almost always, but the person, like you just mentioned, is never going to be at the forefront above the music. So the music will always speak to the music and not the person behind it. And like you said, a lot of my favorite composers, OST producers, right? they're in their 50s, they're in their 60s. Darren Korb is like 39, and he's now everyone knows he's almost a household name after Hades and Transistor. He became a household name, and people still don't know what he looks like or how old he is or whatever, right? But he can be doing this till he's 60, and he's one of my inspirations that I was hoping to speak a little bit about. But yeah, it's an interesting way to look at it, but it's also inspiring when you're, not 18 anymore, and you feel like you're supposed to have a career in not this.
Yeah, and it's also good because, as I'm sure that any kind of career in media music, it's not something that happens overnight. It takes time for you to work your way up with networking and all that. And so yeah, you're not going to just become an overnight sensation generally, right? And you're not going to achieve the pinnacle of your fame at the age of 20. You're not.
Yeah, and I think the misconception is that if that doesn't happen, then you've wasted time, or if that doesn't happen, you can't try again, whether that's in the same medium or a different, And I tried from 22 to 27, just about, and once I hit that 27, 28 age, where it was pretty much like, all right, you got to move out. I had moved out already, but you have to be able to support yourself, and like these questions that only adults talk about become real, And if you don't make the success that musician or non-musicians consider success for musicians, you're barely scraping by sometimes, and it's the sad reality of it, but it's a career that, you're right, takes time, it takes patience, but it also takes a tremendous amount of luck and hoping the right person is listening to you at the right time. And I think that happens too rarely, which maybe is another topic, is just I think the music industry itself is totally broken and backward. But yeah, it just didn't quite happen for us, and now I feel like this is just a much more broadened and opportunity ripe avenue.
Yeah, and it's as big as video gaming is, I still think that the field of video game music is kind of in its infancy, so to speak. I mean, I think there's a lot of opportunities, and there will be even we're going to see exponential growth in that. It's just my prediction, but I feel that way too, as someone who's attempting to make a career also as a studio flute player, right? So the opportunities are more and more going to be in recording video game music than in film and TV. Well, TV is almost completely gone for live musicians at this point. So yeah, I think the field is still kind of in its infancy, and not just because of how long it's been around, but just because of, I don't know, different factors. But I think the explosion that it's undergoing at the moment is partially why I think it's still in its infancy, and there's more opportunities there.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, and I think you can see it, as I alluded to earlier, in other similar fields, like in voice acting. You're hearing the names of certain voice actors or actresses almost regularly now, and you expect them to be in new AAA titles. And that never used to be a thing. You never really cared who voiced, Nathan Drake back in the day, or who voiced Crash Bandicoot, or who voiced, well, he didn't talk, who voiced anybody, right? You didn't really know, or you didn't really care. And same thing went for OSTs. The name Grant Kirkhope was like a legendary name back in the day. He did Banjo-Kazooie, and people knew him at that time. And he was the only one that I knew the name of back in the 90s or the early 2000s. And he's still going at it. And he's well into his 50s, I think. And that's the kind of thing that's like so cool to me, is that he started in his late 30s, is still going in his late 50s, and whether or not it's super lucrative, it's something he's loved for that long, and it's only been growing, like you say. And if he can be an inspiration to older guys, younger guys, like, you can do this as long as you want. and gaming is only going to keep becoming more and more popular. How can there not be opportunities for new, for new developers, for new voice acting talent, and for new musicians?
Yeah. So, how about you mind telling us a little bit about some of the work that you've done in the video game world since you kind of transitioned out of songwriting?
Yeah. So the most tangible work that I've done, other than producing for just showing people who are developing things and not in the stage of game development yet. So a buddy of mine I went to McGill for undergrad, McGill University. Buddy of mine, he always wanted to work in games. Right out of university, started a company called Torpedo Entertainment, and basically it was like 6 of us, and 5 of us were developers / QA testers, game testers, and I was the lone musician who was tasked with, all right, so I want to make this OST, or he was telling me I want this game to have this type of OST, and it was the first time I'd experienced someone telling me how they want their music to sound. So as a musician who is creative, and I'm sure every musician can relate to this, it's difficult to please somebody else when you have a particular sound that you're used to, and you feel like you're maybe not being true to yourself. So it took a little bit of transition to listen to somebody else and say, no, I don't want this here, I want this here. It's almost like an ego check. When you put that aside, it's like, okay, clearly I'm doing this not for me anymore. I'm doing this to make the game better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's one of the big things that you learn once you get into. Obviously, I'm on the more film side of things. It's one of those things you learn very quickly, right? That you want to make some kind of art, but not only do you have time pressure, but it's not your full artistic statement. You're there to service someone else's vision, right? And like the best composers are always talking about how they are, what they're really trying to do is just translate, the director's vision, and like realize it in a way that the director would if they could, but they don't. They don't, because they don't have the musical skills to do it.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely it is challenging to do that. Kind of. Yeah, you're not Beethoven. Making an artistic statement with your symphony. Yeah, I definitely have felt that.
Yeah, you're not the focal point, and you are, like you said, complementing something rather than I can put whatever I want in this track or in this work. You can put as much as you want into it to embellish it, but at the end of the day, or at the end of the project, the game is what you're producing to, right? Not a general audience. So that took some getting used to, but yeah, that game required 6 or 7 tracks, and it was a mobile game actually. So didn't do super well, but for its time, it was not one of the first, but it was just when the App Store was exploding with content.
Wow.
Microtransactions were becoming like not that normal, but they were just in their infancy, and now of course they're like expected. So we actually sold the game for $1. Got a couple hundred buys from like a bunch of friends and family, of course, but I'll never forget and I hate to say this because I hate to sound arrogant or whatever, but the best feedback we got in the reviews, I don't know if they're still there, but most of them were 4-star, 5-star, game was pretty good, but a lot of them were like, music is really good, music is awesome, and it was very cool to see that from random people. I know a lot of them are our friends, of course, but from the few random people we could point out, people were saying like, I stayed in the menu for like minutes at a time just so I could hear the thing loop again, and it's very cool to hear that and be vindicated, that I was able to capture the mood of the game, plus make something that people wanted to listen to, whether they were playing the game or not. I think that's the line you have to toe, and if you find that balance, that's when you get soundtracks like I was referring to earlier, where you can listen to when you're driving to work or when you're doing anything. So I'm very, very lucky to have gotten that that praise from people, and that was inspiring to me to say, well, if I can do it for a mobile game in 2015, then I can retry that and redo it with some new sounds and some better equipment in 2021, 2022.
At that point when you made that, how long I don't know if you said this already, sorry if I missed it. How long had you been making music?
Making music as a songwriter producer, probably 8 years or so.
Okay, so you had quite a bit of experience then at that point.
Yeah, so I know I have to do this, but I hate to do it. I'm self-taught in 7 different instruments, so I did that on purpose so that if I ever was in a situation with another musician and let's say he or she is like, oh, I wish I could play the bass, I don't know how to play the bass, I can fill in as not a virtuoso bassist, but I can track down a good enough bass where we can layer on top of that, and if they need a piano, keyboard, guitar, drum track, ukulele track, whatever, I can fill in for the tracking part, the pre-writing stage, and then bring in a session musician who's better than I am to actually lay down the real, final track. So I had been a songwriter in that sense for 8 or 9 years, but producing on different DAWs, probably 5-6 years.
7 years for 8 years for 7 instruments is pretty good. Not gonna lie.
Yeah, my goal was 1 per year, and I was lucky enough to hit
right.
that. So.
Nice, because the struggle I have with, since I don't like, I'm not I make music, but I think I learned music for the same reason why you learn instruments. It's more of like I like making games, and so if I don't have a composer, I can be the one who it's not gonna be the greatest music ever, but at least I can make something. It won't just be devoid of sound. But I can play like 1.5 instruments, so the issue is I'm pretty much confined to the digital world of sounds, which is not bad, but it'd be not, obviously certain sounds don't cater themselves to the digital world of synthesizers and whatnot. So it'd be nice to be able to have that ability. So it's great that you're able to do that.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks for the kind words. Interestingly though, I've grown to use electronic synths more and more over time because I feel like the art of learning an instrument is dying is a strong word, but it's dying out a little bit. I find that a lot of younger people don't put a lot of stake into I need to learn the guitar, I need to learn how to play piano, because they feel like what skill is this going to how is this going to help me in my career, like make a lot of money?
Yeah. I will. Oh, go ahead, Ben. Sorry.
I'll follow up on what I was going to say. So you can go.
Okay. Yeah, I was just going to say the interesting thing though is there are like interesting corners of the musical world in like I would say in like the entertainment space. So you got like YouTubers and Instagram like virtuosos who do cater to really large audiences of people, but not always does that translate into like music, like actual like I'm going to put out an album now, that I have this audience and actually gain traction. There are a few examples, but there's like Polyphia would be one obvious example that comes to mind. But like there are so many people who are just who are influencers in that sort of space, but they don't actually translate into music people want to apparently listen to. And I wonder why that is.
Yeah, so for me, just following up on this, and I listened to the tracks, the 3 tracks you sent me. I know you said that those were kind of, 6 years old, so not necessarily representative of exactly who you are today. But so, kind of going from that, and also what you were just saying about, composers, not necessarily learning in acoustic instruments anymore. There are a whole bunch of really interesting things we could talk about with that, and yeah, I think that's you're right in a sense, right? I think there are different corners of the entertainment, the commercial music world, right? And some obviously there's very orchestral, right? And you do need to know what you're doing with all these instruments, and you how to handle them. And yes, you probably don't play. You may only play keyboard, but you have to understand all these instruments. And we talked about a lot on our show. What I think people in the media music world refer to as kind of like the lowering of the bar to entry for music. And I think that's what you're getting at. Right? With the technology that we have today, there's very low bar other than buy a DAW, right? That's pretty much the bar to entry. You have to have enough money to buy one of those, but you can buy a free one. You can get Reaper or something like that. So if it's almost non-existent, you have to have a computer, okay, right? That can handle the software. But other than that, the bar is very low. Now, the bar to creating something good, right? And like we can get into what good means, but something that is of a high artistic and technical quality, that's not necessarily, I don't think that bar has changed, but the barrier to entry is pretty low now, to almost the point of being non-existent. And that has changed a lot of the industry, right? And you get people who, even in film music, like they don't know much, about like scoring or right. They don't have to necessarily. You get someone who's like, they've just been like a rock musician their whole lives, and someone wants them to do something, and they have someone else who can help them like get it to like picture, right? So that's the big thing in film, right? Lining up different hit points. They don't have to know how to do that. They don't have to know how to like write for an orchestra like John Williams, because they don't have to. And yeah, so I think that is a really good observation. That I think in a lot of ways, right, a lot of people younger people I'm know tangentially, from my family, friends, whatever, you're just like, yeah, I'm gonna write music. And right, they're not like people who grew up like playing trumpet in band and whatever. Yeah, so it is kind of a cultural shift that I think you're pointing to. And I don't think the more traditional path is going to go away, but I do think it's good that you pointed that out. Along the sorry.
No, I mean, I pretty much summarized everything I was saying, and I think the observation. I mean, the reason I make that observation, maybe more than others, is because I work as a full-time tutor, so I also deal with a lot of teenagers like daily, and sometimes I'll just throw in passing like, oh, or it'll come up that I am also a musician, right? And then they'll ask, what do you play? And I always play all right, I hate to sound like this, but 7 instruments, and then they always try to guess. And inevitably, one of those 7 instruments will be someone's goal in life to learn, right? But they don't act on it. So they'll say it. Oh, I've always wanted to learn guitar. Oh, the bass, that's so cool. The drummers are awesome. Like, they'll say something, right? Or I wish I could sing. And it's not hard to learn, right? Like, you have to put in time, like with anything. But the barrier for entry to learn an instrument is even lower than to produce on a DAW, right? If your dad or if you're a teenager and your parent has an acoustic guitar lying around, there's literally zero barrier for entry, right? If they have a keyboard lying around, and most of these houses do, and even if not, some of them are $40-$50, and it's just like they just have no motivation to learn those things when their mind is on university, job, career, money, right? And my mind was on that, but I, for some reason, had this nagging necessity to not learn, right? Like to learn new instruments. I had like an obsession with it, and I wanted to learn as many as I could, and I put that almost in front of everything else, which, from my experience, and you made some good points, but from my experience, is just that's what I see as the priority for learning them is lower.
That's probably true. That's probably true too, and I think maybe some of it is that people tend I'm just guessing, but my instinct, also I guess also from knowing a couple of local people, like through my younger sister, my instinct is that some of the people who do, I'm just gonna write, on a DAW and not bother to really know what I'm doing, but I'll make it sound good. I think some of the attraction is that it probably seems easy, like that's an easier path to like creating something that's complete and potentially of commercial value than like, oh, I can play some keyboard. So I think that is probably my instincts is that that's also a factor in it.
Yeah, and that you can show somebody at the end. And yeah, I don't mean to derail you if you had a question, but I need to take the time to shout out one game in particular, and you guys have seen this in the Discord, but anyone who knows me knows that over the past year that this game came out in 2021 of last June. It's transcended the point of an OST to me, because most of it is real instruments, but it's mixed with electronic in this incredibly cohesive way that I never would have expected. Nobody told me about the game prior. I didn't know it had this level of beautiful OST where every track just feels like a total journey, and it almost makes the game a different game because of how good it is. And it's called Scarlet Nexus. A lot of people get turned off by it because it looks like an anime and it looks, like a standard typical JRPG, and it doesn't, look like it will appeal to a lot of people, and that's totally correct. But I'm bringing it up because that OST alone really made me transition from, all right, maybe I can do this in a video game format to I can definitely do this in a video game format. And not only can I, but I absolutely want to and won't not try. Like, I won't give up trying, because when I listen to this OST, it's a full band. It's not one guy. It's a full band, and some of it is orchestral, but most of it is actually like metal mixed with this EDM, house producer, DJ, and together they create this mixing of almost the two generations of music, like the real live bands who are aiming to play in front of audiences with the electronic producers who are aiming to really not do that. And in a gaming setting where most people ignore it, it actually vaults the game to like a different level of game, right? It's like an experience. It's like a journey, and I have to shout that out because I really want as many people to hear this soundtrack as possible. It was snubbed at the Game Awards, wasn't even nominated for Best Music, and I just stopped watching after that because I think it's actually a travesty to not have that included. But I highly recommend anyone listen to any of the tracks. Like, every single one is like a masterpiece, just to hear that melding of the two styles.
The mix between electronic and non-electronic instruments is something I've been really interested in, actually. Ever since I heard the Attack on Titan soundtrack and I explored more of the composer's work. And I think one thing that struck me as very unique is that the electronic and non-electronic instruments are often mixed in with each other, and it feels very natural, and like you don't even notice it a lot of times. But in certain songs, it's obvious once you are sort of like, I guess, studying it, if you will, like consciously taking it in, and not like having it passive as you're watching a show, and that's something that actually, that would be my end goal, is if I were, I've thought about this, if I were, to go the full music route, is that like I would want to try to mix the electronic and the non-electronic music. I think that is like, I don't know, it's very appealing to me, I guess. Not necessarily that, it's automatically the song gets better if that's the case, right? It's just like I guess a particular niche that I just think is super interesting, and I guess it's because of listening to this kind of music, it all tends to be pretty good. And I don't think that's necessarily only because of the mix, right? I think it also has to do with the composer himself is also just good in general, right? Yeah, that's something that I found super appealing, and it's interesting because Attack on Titan is sort of what brought me closer, I'm more interested, into the world of music. So yeah, that was interesting that you mentioned that, because that is definitely a big part of music for me.
I'm going to argue, Nathan, that you call this kind of a niche thing. I'm going to argue, and I think I kind of alluded to this in our last episode where, arguing with Red and something about like the future of music. And I'm going to kind of expand on that. What I said there. I think that we already get a lot of blending of non-acoustic and acoustic instruments in certainly in film, and maybe not exactly in the way that this soundtrack does, which I listened to it, and I not all of it. I listened to some of it today after you sent that, and I thought it was very good. But I think that that's kind of the way of the future. Not necessarily like the way that this particular soundtrack does it, but I think just more and more blending of acoustic and non-acoustic is. I kind of think that that's not going to be a niche thing. I think that's actually kind of in all the manifestations and all the ways that can work. I think that's actually more of what the future is. It's not. I don't think we're going to live so much in like exclusively like Zimmer-esque, fully electronic. Nor do I think we are going to. Well, we've already. Other than John Williams, right? We don't live in that kind of fully orchestral world anymore. I think it's the joining of the two is what the future really is.
I think I haven't listened to the Scarlet Nexus soundtrack, so I can't be sure, obviously what it sounds like, right? But I think because I've known, there's been a blend. It's like, for example, I think. I was watching Hans Zimmer's masterclass or whatever, he's talking about, how he uses synths and stuff like that and whatnot. But I think his blending tends to be more subtle. I think that's like, I'm thinking of like, say, Pirates of the Caribbean, where the organs sometimes are synthesized, right? But a lot of people might just not even realize that, right? And he's going, at least in the song I'm thinking of, he's going for a realistic sounding organ, but he wanted to be able to change the volume in what do you call it, without like just like straight up changing like the gain on it, for example, of the microphone, right, in a more natural sounding way, I guess. So I made it a synth or whatever, right? These kind of things are more like subtle. And yeah, there are, like, I'm thinking of other soundtracks too where they're more electronic, but I feel like it's like, I don't know how to explain it. If you listen to something like what's the song called? I'm forgetting. I believe the anime is called Blue Exorcist, or that's the name of the song. It's one or the other. But it's like the synths are very abrasive, and it's like it doesn't sound at all like it should fit with traditional instruments, right? But it's the fact that it does fit that's the interesting part to me, right? And it's like, I wouldn't say it's niche in terms of the audience. I think the fact, like the way he's made it, is that it's enjoyable for the average person, probably, right? I think more what I meant by niche is like it's not what every musician is interested in. A lot of musicians are not interested in that sort of blending of things. It's like from a creator's perspective, it would be my niche if I were to go into music, fully. Is I want to experiment a lot with sort of like really like abrasive, like sounds like came straight out of like some like, I don't know, some EDM track, took a synth out of it, right, a particularly harsh one, put it into a orchestral piece, and then it just sounded fine.
Yeah.
I want to hear this piece, Nathan.
Yeah,
I will find it. There are a few tracks I can send, but yeah, I'll find and send links in the chat.
I want to hear it from you.
Yeah, exactly. That's what
you want to hear me make a track? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I want to hear.
You kind of railroaded yourself into it.
The thing is, right? Okay, here's the thing. I actually do.
The backtrack.
Actually, wait.
The thing is, right? Okay, I do make music, right? It's not good music, I would say, but I experiment a lot, and currently, right at the moment, I'm learning specifically about electronic things. As a saying I alluded to before is, I can't play many instruments, so I can't really like put together an orchestral piece in like. Okay, so all right, let me go back a little bit. So I understand that we have a lot of people that we interview on the show who do music, right? And they often submit their orchestral pieces, right? And no offense to them, but I often like for me, I am really bothered by the very clearly synthetic instruments, if you get what I'm saying. And so I feel like if I made something with like a fake violin that clearly sounded pretty fake, it would really bother me. I totally like appreciate people who do that, and I understand that you simply not everyone can afford a violinist, or can simply be like, oh, I want to make an orchestral piece. Let me learn like one of 30 instruments really quick, to get this to completion. So for me, like it's I don't know, it's like my own I don't know desire for perfection perhaps would prevent me from even sort of starting in that. So that's why I sort of lean fully electronic in that regard, because then, well, it's hard to mess up. Dead Mouse once said that there's no such thing as a bad sound, because you can take any. Oh, actually, and he was saying this in regards to things like, say, like that fake sounding violin, is that his solution is to take the fake sounding violin and you like perhaps distort the heck out of it so it doesn't even sound like it's supposed to be a real violin, right? And so you detach that expectation entirely. So yeah, I guess I'm sort of this. I feel the same in that regard, in that I would have a hard time dealing with synthetic instruments like that.
Nathan, there are great sound libraries out there.
Yeah, but okay, a lot of them. Okay, okay. For example, right, I've used like piano libraries, right? These things are a dime a dozen. They're great. They work fine, But the issue is things like, for example, I used a free, literally, I used a free violin one, and I was like, doesn't I don't know. It's hard. You can't get things like expression very easily. It often sounds very samey and stuff like that. I find maybe I don't know enough about it. Maybe there's like method. Maybe I'm not using the right libraries, or there are ways to do this. But I don't know. The stuff I've been trying, it tends to sound very robotic. Even if perhaps it sounds real, it's like, I don't know. I've listened to a whole song and it has this like sort of violin VST I'm using or something. I feel like you just sort of tell like, this is not a real person playing this. It sounds a bit too robotic and stuff. So
yeah, well, it does take a lot of work, and knowing the right libraries. There are some really cool videos of John Powell where he takes like whatever, some big massive orchestral track from How to Train Your Dragon or something, one of those films, and he cuts. I think there's one he does it where he cuts in between the mock-up and the actual recording of it, like I think 20 times, and he doesn't tell you where they are, and like you basically can't tell the difference. What there's 20 different. You can make it that seamless, but yes, it requires a lot of knowledge and work.
I wonder, are these? I'm curious, right? Like, is this actually a potential that I that I can actually use? So, are these libraries? Do you generally have to pay for these, or allow them free, or if they're paid, are they expensive?
Yeah, so a lot of them are definitely not free, and also the highest level, you're also kind of creating. Sometimes you're creating your own libraries, bringing in live musicians and recording them doing specific things, so you have that. And it also comes down to how well you mix things. And another really key point is that the more, if you're going to emulate, live acoustic instruments, the more that you write as if you were writing for a real person to write, the more natural it's going to sound. You can make the sound library do anything, whether it's natural or even possible on the instrument or not, and the computer will spit it out for you. But if you write in a way that is like as though you were writing for a live person, even if the live person doesn't play it, the computer will make it sound more realistic.
All right, gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I'm sure. Like, yeah, I can imagine if you had things being unrealistically played, you just get back to the same issue of it sounding robotic again, because it'd be very clear. Well, only a robot could do that.
Yeah, I think we kind of instinctively feel that. Like if you've grown up hearing a lot of cello, which a lot of people have, even if they don't realize it, you kind of instinctively know somehow what sounds vaguely natural on a cello.
Yeah, and relating it back to gaming a little bit, if I may. Scarlet Nexus is, of course, I've been glowing about this, but another game that really, really influenced my, decision and even a little bit of my production is Persona 5, which probably everyone has heard of, right? If not played it. I think, alluding to your point, Nathan, well, both of you, is that oftentimes, if the musicians are good enough, and the producer and mixer and master are good enough, live musicians will actually end up sounding synthetic because they're so good and they're so in the pocket and they're so well timed with each other, and the mixer has mixed it in a way that everything sits in the mix perfectly, and their mids don't clash with the highs and the lows are in their own spot. It actually sounds like a DAW made this, and I could do this with my synth. And a lot of Scarlet Nexus, Persona 5, a lot of the anime games, like even Tales of Arise, they have these OSTs that make you think, this couldn't have been a 50-person orchestra. This couldn't have been a live 6-piece band. This could not have been a real electric guitarist. This couldn't have been an electric bassist playing fingerstyle. None of those things come through when the mix is done. And then you watch them live and they're doing it, and you're like, well, damn, like, that sounded robotic, that sounded fake, that sounded synthetic because the live musicians were so good. So sometimes the reverse theory is also true.
Yeah, actually, I'm thinking like, I don't know if you've ever heard the Hearts of Iron 4 soundtrack. It's all live musicians, but it really sounds very perfect. And they have videos of them recording it. But it's so, like, I don't know. I think it's the fact that there's so many instruments at once that seem to be very on point in terms of the timing. So it just sounds like one giant wall of sound starts. And it's like, that seems a bit too perfect, But yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, and bass is my favorite instrument to play. I wouldn't say it's my best one, but I write on it, I produce on it, and I learn a lot of bass tracks. And Persona 5 and Scarlet Nexus in particular have these really, really prominent electric bass tracks that the normal person who doesn't care about music or play any instruments would be like, oh, it's just like a bass track that someone did this with on their MIDI keyboard. And being a bassist, I'm like, I need to learn these tracks. So you go online or you search a tab and it's not there, right? So hopefully you find some person on YouTube who did a cover, and I found someone who did a cover on a lot of Persona 5 bass tracks, and very clearly you can tell that those synthy sounding bass tracks are clearly a fingerstyle bassist, playing a 4-string bass just like I have, and laying down a track that it sounds so good and is mixed so well that it sounds electronic. And having learned some of them, I know it's not electronic because I can actually do it, right? If it were electronic, some of those things would be impossible. Like you'd be traversing 15 frets, like, on 16th notes. And that doesn't exist. You can really play those, It's very cool to learn those bass tracks or to learn the whatever tracks, because that a real live musician did this, and it's just mixed so well that you can't even tell.
All right, yeah, for sure.
To interrupt real quick, 909 Crime says in Wonder Boy 3 Monster Lair, there's a soundtrack where they start shredding on a MIDI violin, and it sounds really weird, but really cool at the same time. So there's a recommendation from the chat.
Ooh. Yeah, shredding on MIDI is, MIDI you can pretty much do anything if you just go like this, right? But to make it sound real is actually takes hours upon hours longer than just tracking down the MIDI notes. I'm sure you know this, Ben, or both of you, I'm sure. Tracking the MIDI is easy, but if you want to make the MIDI have expression and have intonation and have an attack, a decay, a different sustain sound so that it sounds like a real musician, it takes forever. And I've been there like a science project, but at that point it's like, okay, is it worth it to spend 6 hours tracking a bass track so it sounds real, or just learning the bass so you can play it yourself, Maybe that gets back to what we were saying earlier, is like, yeah, anyone with a DAW can just do that, but they're never ever going to reach the real expression of a true bassist or a true flautist, or a true cellist. I just don't think they'll never be one-to-one.
Yeah.
Yep.
Looks like he agrees with you. Hours of programming. There you go.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we probably should be giving some time to the other segments of our show.
Sorry.
No.
It's been
This
a really
is a good segment.
fascinating
I was enjoying
conversation.
it.
I feel like we have to have you back on because we got 1% deep into the pond.
Yeah, but at the same time, I have to give some time to my co-hosts.
Yeah.
So why don't we just wrap up? We tend to ask everyone we bring on the show. Originally, our show was kind of predicated on giving kind of hot takes on different artistic things. So we like to ask every one of our guests at the end if they have any hot takes about anything, but particular kind of stuff we've been talking about, right? Video game music, composition in general. Any hot takes you have?
I have hot takes on gaming in general, but I do want to keep it relevant to what you're talking about. So I would say, I will say that, okay, this is a pretty hot take that a lot of people actually still debate, and they're really, I don't even know if there's a definitive answer, but I think the Game Awards, the music category, should not consider OSTs that are licensed, and they should only consider original soundtracks in their award nominees. And for two main reasons. The most obvious reason is you're buying your way into it if you're a licensed OST entirely. But the second reason is there's no artistic prowess to show, or there's no artistic integrity to just say my OST is better than yours because I use 16 different artists whose music was already commercially available, and I put them together and I made it sound good, as opposed to here's a composer, here's a producer, here's an orchestra that put together this incredible original soundtrack that wouldn't exist without the game. And that game doesn't get nominated, but a game like Cyberpunk does. And I just was deeply insulted by the fact that Cyberpunk and Last of Us 2, not that I had licensed music, but from the previous year, that those were nominated in music when there are soundtracks that exist that blow them away, whether or not they're AAA, and it just is like almost criminal to me that can exist.
I'm 100% with you on that.
Maybe it's not that hot of a take as I thought, but
Yeah, what the heck? More controversial, man.
We run into this problem with all of our hot takes a lot of times, or even ones that we pull in, for our arguing with Reddit segment, which we'll get to in a second. Sometimes controversial things aren't as controversial as they sound.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, it's like it's the whole problem we talk about often is like what is being produced actually what the market wants, and sometimes there's a disconnect, which is an interesting topic in general whenever that happens.
Yeah, I think I'm slightly hypocritical too, because my favorite soundtrack of all time is Tony Hawk 3. All of which is licensed ska punk music, because that's what I grew up listening to and still do, right? But there's not an ounce of creativity in anyone on the development team who put that together, right? They just said, "Oh, these tracks would sound good on this game," right? But I still listen to that OST like almost every day. But I almost have like an issue calling that an OST, because in my mind the O stands for original, not official, right? And that's where I was alluding to the debate before. There is no definitive answer. Is it original or official? It's both. So I think there should be two categories. One can be licensed best music, right, and just give credit to whoever curated the tracks. and one should be original soundtrack, and give the artists some exposure and the game some exposure when the game is made better by its music.
Makes sense to me.
So that's my very lukewarm take, I guess.
Okay. Well, thank you again for joining us and having such a great conversation. I think we touched on a whole bunch of things there. So, and yeah, like Irving said, it should definitely get you back on and continue some of this discussion. But yeah, so thanks again for joining us, and yeah, thanks to our audience for listening to Mixed Media Music. Make sure you listen to the OST for Scarlet Nexus.
Yes, hell yeah.
Yeah, that's our recommendation of the day. Okay.
Appreciate it, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Yep.
Absolutely.
We'll talk to you later. Bye. All right here. So, before we transition real quick. Oh no, don't break, editor. Don't break. Things are happening. Oh no. There we go. Resh, are you hanging around for future segments, or are you going to drop off?
I do have to drop off. I got to get to work early tomorrow, but
okay.
I hate to just jump off after the segment I was on, but that was a lot of fun. Definitely will want to come back on.
Sweet. Yeah, no, that's all good. Yeah, you can just hang up from the Skype call. You won't break anything. That's fine. Oh, cross my fingers. At least.
All right, so I'll hang up. And then, do you want me to send you over the WAV file?
Yeah. Just we'll talk about it offline when we get there. Mm-hmm.
Sounds good. Thanks a lot, guys. Good to meet you too.
Yep. See ya.
Me too.
See ya.
Nice chatting with you.
Yeah, for sure. Likewise.
Sweet. Awesome. So now that we are on our next segment, let's do our little transition. So here we go.
Mixed Media Movies.
And welcome back to Mixed Media. If you've been in the chat, welcome aboard. If you found this chat after our little snafu earlier, shout out to you. We had some technical issues at the start of the show, but we have been streaming for a while. So if that sounds weird to you, like streaming, what? Yeah, this is a live stream podcast. And the wonderful thing is that you might not be able to tell the difference with this episode, which would be amazing if that's the case, because we've split our audio off and now we're doing audio editing separately. So hopefully it doesn't even sound like a live stream. So if you enjoy that sort of live aspect of things, us reading the comments as we go, you want to be part of the podcast, join us at mixedmediapodcast.com. You'll find a link to our YouTube channel, our Twitch channel, our Rumble channel. On Discord, you can even listen to the live audio alone. Now, at the bottom, I'm realizing I forgot to take him off, is Resh, who was, or Reshy P, which is his stage name, who was on talking about his sort of musical career, his thoughts on different gaming music topics. If you want to listen to that episode, you got to check that out. That's probably come out before this episode. You can just hit our icon channel wherever we are. And subscribe if you want to see more stuff like that, because we're almost certainly going to have him back on the show at some point, because I feel like we just scratched the surface. So definitely go check that out. But for now, to skip past Frozen Resh, we've got to do some reacting to some hot takes. So I'm here with two other people. I need to get in the habit of doing this, but might as well say hello, guys.
Hi, I'm.
Hello.
Should we introduce ourselves?
Sure.
Okay. Hi, I'm Ben Costello.
Oh.
Was I speaking over the transition?
Oh, that little transition doesn't have a sound, so you're good.
Okay, but still speaking over the transition.
No, that
people have no idea what's going on right now.
This stuff gets edited out. This kind of stuff gets edited out.
Yeah, I just assumed that was all going to get edited out. So
yeah, you can start over.
Hi, I'm Ben Costello. I'm a flute player and a media composer.
Yo, I'm Nathan Nestor. I'm a game developer and 3D modeler.
Yeah, I guess I didn't say my name. I'm Irving Nestor. I'm a filmmaker and media entrepreneur. Um, and yeah, this is our segment, Arguing with Reddit. So I'm going to pull out of the hat, or rather a Discord channel, 3 hot takes that my co-hosts and producer wife, my wife, has picked for me to react to live. So I have not seen any of these, and I don't know what they'll be about. So you'll get my fresh takes, and if I don't know something, I'll look like an idiot, which is not infrequent. So we'll see here. Let me pull up. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, happens to all of us on Arguing with Reddit.
Yeah, exactly. The other thing is I'm noticing that it looks like Reddit has changed its format severely, which all my presets are set such that the Reddit page looks nice, so I'm going to have to fix that later. But for now, we've got this. Because the webpage
Is that? I've never seen that format before. What's happening? Well, it looks the same actually. Never mind. It's just the side. It's just you moved it to the side, right?
I didn't move anything. It must be the web page that's moved things because my template's the same as always. So I'm assuming it's the template here. Unless there's something on the screen. No. Okay. Whatever. I'm not going to focus on that right now. However, let's read this first hot take from producer wife. So it says, or no, wait.
This is
from? Oh, it's from Nathan.
It's from me.
Okay. Go ahead.
Yeah. What's most relevant is So the title is just all 6 Jurassic Park and Jurassic World movies ranked. Now, the real hot take is in the link that's linked to of the article that lists them out. So I don't know if it's a Reddit hot take specifically, but it was found in Reddit, so I'm counting it. And perhaps we can look at the comments and see if your list is like a general consensus list.
Wait, so is this here the spicy list?
You just gotta scroll down. Yeah, you gotta just scroll down and just look at the bold. I think they're bolded. Yeah, there you go. Jurassic Park was it 3 years first? I think.
Wait, where? Oh,
there.
Okay, I gotcha. Do I have to click? Oh, okay. It's one of these things. Got it. Okay. So this is in reverse order.
I should have just came up with giving you the list, just copy down the order and just giving you the list. But unfortunately, this is the way we have to do it due to my poor planning.
So this is in reverse order. So I think they're saying Jurassic Park 2 is the worst.
Yes, 3. It says 3, but yes.
3. Oh, yes. It's Jurassic Park 3. Okay. I think at some point I have actually seen all the Jurassic Park movies. But some of them I saw like so long ago before I was even into film, so my recollection is going to be really bad. I remember. Let's actually play. Hopefully, I don't get into copyright trouble. We'll see. If you don't see this part in post, that's because we got copyright trouble. So let's see here. If I can remember. Oh, I hate. Get in trouble with ads too appearing. It's really silly. Wow, look at film. Let's see. Oh yes, I do remember this one. Yes, it's all coming back now. Yes, it's all coming back now. I think I agree that this is not one of the better ones. Okay, I'll just say this up front before I even continue. Number 1's got to be the best one, right? Like we're gonna say number 1's the best one because that's fairly obvious to me. But let me see here. We've got Jurassic World. Oh, sorry, I forgot about the new franchise. Sorry, no, this is not true. Okay, out of if we're including the new movies, I mean. Fallen Kingdom. That's pretty bad. Is
Fallen Kingdom the second Jurassic World?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's pretty horrible.
So I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah, that's worse. I'm going to say that's definitively worse. It has none of, at least, the old school charm. It's just horrible. It's just bad with no nostalgia or any, redeeming qualities. It's a bad script. It's a bad movie. I would put that last. Dominion, is that the newest one? That's the newest one, right? I think that's the newest one.
Yeah, I believe that's the newest one, yeah.
I have not seen it, but wouldn't surprise me if it was this low, given the performance of the second one in the new trilogy. Let's see here. Jurassic World. Okay. Yeah, so the first Jurassic World, I didn't have as much of a problem with as most people because, while it didn't have as much of the old school charm, it sort of didn't go for that too much. It just was just a new school blockbuster, and it just sort of leaned into that, and it was just like family fun, right? Like it felt like something I could take kids to and not feel like they were deleting brain cells watching. Unlike the second version of the second in the franchise, which is just like, wow, that's a corrupting force right there. um, this one's like just like, I mean, forgettable. Chris Pratt is great in it. He absolutely it carries the movie. I mean, I don't think it would be nearly as entertaining if it wasn't for him. The same goes for all of the movies. I should say the second one is also better because he's in it as well, I suppose. But the surrounding film was just that bad that he can't save it. So, okay, then this is the second. Okay, so we've got the right answer. The first Jurassic Park is the best Jurassic Park. That is the correct answer. So I'm gonna say I agree mostly with this list. I think this list is rather reasonable. I would probably put this as 2 as well. And yeah, of course we've got the original one as number 1. I would agree with this list. Was there like controversy on the besides the last two? The last two I would flip, but yeah. Was there a controversy?
I mean, there's going to be controversy just given the topic,
right?
but there's no. I didn't see anything particularly notable though in the comments. You know, just like normal disagreements or whatever.
Gotcha. Yeah, not a terrible list. Although I don't remember, particularly the third Jurassic Park movie that well, and I haven't seen Dominion, and I don't want to see Dominion. I'm never seeing Dominion, probably. So
is the third one the one where it starts where they land on a plane on like some runway? Okay, yeah, I can see this being the worst one. Or I haven't seen the new one, so I haven't seen the last two. I saw the first Jurassic World, so
it's definitely not very good, but it's not as bad as the second Jurassic World for sure. That is bucket of poo would be putting it lightly. Dumpster fire of a movie. Okay, let's go with the next one. So this one is from Producer Wife. Let's see if Reddit will be nice to me with the formatting on this one. Let's see. Oh, it's loading. Oh, why is this one better? Okay, there's no. It's still not right. It's better. There's some weird pattern happening here. Okay. So what does this one say? It says, I hate sad movies. Well, you might not like my movies very much. But that's okay. I hate sad movies. Sorry for the bad English. I hate sad emotional movies. The world is sad enough as it is. We don't need movies that make us even more sad than we already are. For example, The Lovely Bones, the movie messed me up for days. I seek entertainment for an escape from sadness. Sure, some movies can have an emotion to them, but nothing is worse than a movie that is entirely miserable, including historical films. That's my unpopular opinion.
Excluding.
Excluding historical. Why exclude historical films? I don't see.
I feel like
that's kind of ad hoc to me, but
probably because historical films have to be the way that they are. And my person's like, well, the world is sad, and I want to escape from the sadness of the world. So the film that's about the world has to be sad.
Yeah,
probably that's my guess.
I suppose.
I don't know. This is nothing worse. This is nothing worse than a movie that is entirely miserable, excluding those, right? So apparently those are less bad, but they should be worse considering it's the same thing except you know the thing is real.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah, I mean, yeah. Okay, we'll ignore that seeming inconsistency.
The person did say sorry for bad English. Maybe. I mean, the English was pretty perfect up until there. Maybe it meant be including. I don't know.
Yeah. Let's see what other people have said. I feel this way about movies with realistic violence and death. So people are talking about apocalypse and end of the world movies. OG Star Wars fans had to survive 3 years not knowing what would become of Han Solo after he was frozen in carbonite, or if Luke would withstand the temptations of the darks. I mean, I don't know if that's in the same category of film as other people are probably thinking, but that's an interesting thing. Okay. So this is actually a surprisingly common. Well, I don't know if it's surprising, but it's a very common opinion, actually. Um, I mean, you find this opinion a lot in like group settings, which makes a lot more sense to me. Um, because, like, you know, people when they're hanging out with friends, they don't tend to want to be depressed together. Like, usually, you're trying to have a good time. Although, in my experience, watching sad movies with a group of people can be extremely fulfilling. So I don't actually agree with that. But 909 Crime says they want to be sad for real and real only. Yeah, I can see that being the argument. Although if the argument is I don't like being sad, then even that would be a bad thing, you would think. But I don't know. But I think that this gets at the sort of entertainment versus art sort of thing, or not versus. That's not the right way to put it, but like entertainment, art terminology, how we think about these things. I think if you think of movies as completely as a commodity, right? Like where you take the input X, that is the movie, and you get out Y, which is enjoyment. If you commoditize it, commoditize? Did I just make up a word? I don't know. But if you make it a commodity, right, then yeah, I mean, you could reduce it to just being that. But I don't think if you really take it and you push it to that, if you want to be consistent and you take that as your paradigm, I only want the commodity of input X and I get enjoyment out of it, right? Just like joy or happiness or feeling better or escapism or whatever it is, right? You just get just those things. I think you'll eliminate a lot of more things than you actually think you are eliminating. I think there's a lot of movies that make us feel good because they have good, I guess, happy endings, right? But actually do deal with a lot of like rather deep and like dark sort of themes, like internal to the plot. So I mean, one that comes to mind immediately is like Harry Potter, right? Like there's a lot of darkness in Harry Potter, but
I was going to say Star Wars because we already got a reference to that, right? People use that as like, you know, a film that just is like space escapism, but I don't think that's true at all. I mean, yes, it has that element, but
yeah, exactly. It's not. I don't think that what you want is escapism. I don't think people, when they say this kind of stuff, I don't think they're actually. Well, some people that's what they want, but I think for some people they don't know how to express a preference in consumption or a habit in consumption that they have instead. Because like take Star Wars, take Harry Potter. Come on, there's like there's like stuff in there that is like objectively sad, objectively negative. In fact, if I sold you a movie, this movie is gonna only have just the same cat videos that you can find on YouTube strung together with happy music in the background, right? Is that fulfilling? Like, and that's extreme. I'm like being extreme on purpose, but like, you know, I'm trying to stretch your understanding of like, I'm here just for entertainment, right? I don't know if that's actually what you want. I think what you want, and maybe what's happening, is what you find fulfilling in your habit of consumption is that you find leaving this world to a safer place, because all movies are safer places for the most part, right? Like they're places where we can go, and if you're really absorbed, if you're really immersed, you can be in that world without the repercussions that life would normally have. Like you can't die, the extreme end of things, but certainly these aren't really your emotions at stake. These aren't really certain things at stake. So if you're watching a lot of sort of like really immersive films, you might find yourself really liking the fact that you can wrap yourself up in someone else's struggle instead. And what you might be doing, and maybe this is a bit of psychoanalysis of someone who I don't know, is you might be trying to solve life's problems, like abstractly. I don't mean like your specific day-to-day problems, but the problems of life in the safer space of the world that the particular film is exploring, right? So
It's like one of the theories of.
oh, you're frozen. Oh.
Can you hear me?
Now I can hear you, yeah. You're frozen on the screen.
All I was saying was.
Okay,
Huh?
Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, what I was saying was, isn't that one of the theories of why we have certain types of dreams as a sort of like a safe sandbox in which we can sort of experiment with dangers and whatnot without actually being able to receive harm?
I have heard that before, for sure. I've definitely heard that. Whether or not that's true, I have no idea. But, but
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I mean that's sort of the idea. I'm talking about in this person's, like, I'm thinking a lot of times when the examples of films where that people are watching when they say this kind of stuff, it's like fantasy films. It's like the more immersive type of blockbuster, and so that's obviously not the scope of all films. There are films that are very meta, like there are films that are not trying to immerse you at all, but trying to make you think you right there in the chair, talking to you right there in the chair. But oftentimes the films that these people will watch are more immersive films, and you might just like the warm blanket of being in some other world where you can safely grapple with the themes of life, like love, loss, all the sort of themes of life that every movie ever has explored. And that might be one of the things. The other side of the coin, though, is if what you mean is that it's a distraction, I don't know that that's a good thing for anything, whether it's film or, I don't know, pretty much anything. Like, you could use anything as a distraction. I don't know if that's a good thing. Like, as a pure distraction, if you say, like, okay, I'm just going to use this to distract from the problems I have in life, that's... that might not be the healthiest thing, especially in habit. That's usually how addictions happen. So I don't know if you want to be going down that route, but at the same time, there is in those sort of immersive films, there's a sort of distraction component, I guess. You're spending time doing this instead of elsewhere, but it's a little bit more fulfilling if you're enjoying it for what it is instead of using it to be in a different place and avoiding your problems. I can do this with gaming. I can do this with scrolling on Instagram. I can do this with eating. I can do this with literally anything. Use it to distract from daily life. And I would suggest that that's something you should habituate away from as much as possible. So yeah, that's my thought there. Okay. Oh, by the way, I write sad films, so it's funny because the film that Ben helped me on is not a sad film at all. It's like the opposite. It is a bubbly summertime movie. But most of my film concepts are rather a lot emotionally.
The end is perhaps a little bit ambiguous or dark with regards to some of the characters. If you think about it too much.
Wait, what? Oh, yeah, I'm not understanding this.
I'm assuming you've seen Operation
Yeah.
First Light.
I've seen it a couple times.
Some of those characters don't reappear.
That is true. This is true.
Oh, I mean, we don't think about those. We don't, the fallen, the lost. But yeah, I mean, if I even describe some of the opening scenes of some of my films, Yikes. There's some interesting stuff happening in my films. Maybe it speaks to me. I have no idea. But rather depressing concepts.
It's funny. Just yesterday, I was talking to my mom. I was explaining to her why I think why I've come to think that my probably my favorite film is Andrei Rublev by Tarkovsky, and like why I like it so much, without kind of telling her what the plot was, because well, you can't really tell. It's hard to describe a plot anyway, but yeah, it's a sad film. I mean, yes, maybe there's some measure of like that's not even redemption. It's like the end is not like absolutely like negative. I'll give it that, but it's a pretty dark and sad film. But you have to kind of get through 3 hours and 15 minutes, and then you finally get some light in the last scene. But it doesn't. Yeah, I don't know. And that's kind of what the whole point of the film is. It's kind of like asking, what is the point of art in the midst of a really brutal world, essentially.
Yep. Yeah, I agree entirely. I mean, I can just rattle off like Shutter Island is a really sad movie. One of the best movies ever made, in my opinion. Like, it's just I think there's a lot of great stuff that is just it's sad, but the point is not to be sad, really. The point is, and the reasons these movies are so excellent is because they speak to something greater. So yeah, maybe think about the greater things they're speaking to. Okay. Next one here, I think, should be from Ben. So let's see. What is this one, Ben?
Oh, you're muted, Ben.
Oh. Really? It looked like it was okay. I don't know. Sorry about that. Yeah, so the title pretty much says what it is. The Kung Fu Panda trilogy is one of the best trilogies of all time. Each movie is thoroughly entertaining with excellent action sequences and great comedy. The voice acting in all 3 movies is also phenomenal. But what I appreciate most about them is the unique life lesson each movie provides. It's strange to say, but the moral of each movie really struck a chord with me. So there you go. Kung Fu Panda trilogy is one of the best trilogies of all time.
Yeah, I guess one of the best.
Are we narrowing this down to trilogies only, or are we saying best movie series? Is it literally just trilogies?
Well, to be fair, the title says trilogies, so
yeah, okay. I'll stick with trilogies. So I have seen them all. I'm fairly certain. I feel like I've seen like the second one in like some like hotel room or something. I feel like that's my association with it. I don't know why. But yeah, so that's interesting. Didn't think I was going to be talking about Kung Fu Panda. It's interesting because with the first film I saw it rather young, right? Like, 'cause it's pretty old, right? The first Kung Fu Panda. When did that come out?
I haven't seen any of them.
Oh, really? I haven't.
2008 is the first one.
Doesn't it have like a remark, like it's Hans Zimmer. I was about to say, isn't it like, and John Powell? Okay.
Yeah, it's Zimmer and Powell collaborating, at least on the first one.
All right. Yeah, I was say I'm pretty sure it's known for its music at least.
Yes, and I actually do remember how full the music is. I don't know which one I'm thinking of, but
probably all similar.
Yeah. So yeah, that's 14 years ago. I mean, yeah, I was rather young when the first one came out, and I remember watching it. I don't know when I watched it. I don't know if I watched it approximate to its coming out, but I feel like my reaction when I was younger was, this is a silly movie. Like, I feel like this is, I'm not taking it too seriously, whatever. But actually, I watched it again much later. Maybe I've watched it a few times. It's one of those movies that's like playing everywhere, like somewhere. It's like, it's a kid-friendly movie that's like enjoyable for adults as well, right? So it's often in like, I don't know, every TV everywhere.
Yeah. I feel like at any given moment, there's like a non-negligible chance it's playing on FX or ABC. I don't know why. It just feels like that kind of movie.
Yeah. Exactly. So I've probably seen at least bits of it many times with the first one for sure, because I remember a lot from the first one. And over time, as I grew older, I appreciated it a lot more because I think whenever I watched it, I associated with sort of its like I guess like slapstick humor and like whatever, and then I was just like, this is like a really kiddish thing. But as I grow older, I appreciate more of what they're doing and what they're going for. I appreciate that they're not just doing that sort of slapstick humor. Now, as I grew older too, I still don't really appreciate the slapstick humor as much as maybe some other people do. I don't know if I find it terribly funny, to be honest. But also humor is like really weird for me. I don't know. I think I laugh a lot less at movies than other people in general. Comedy has always been rough for me. So I don't know. Maybe that's just a me thing. But I find the storytelling in general to be extremely well crafted. So everything from the music to the character design to the world building to the animation to the voice acting, that's all being done super well. The writing is on the simpler side for a lot of it, but the execution of the simpler writing is really good. Is it the best trilogy of all time? I mean, that's a pretty tall bar, so I don't really know if I can go that far. That's a little far. But then again, I guess trilogy is very specific, like we've said. So yeah, I mean, even some things aren't really trilogies because I don't know. Do you count prequels and trilogies? And I don't know. I have no idea. I guess the sets they're supposed to come in are supposed to be the trilogy if it comes in a three pack. So I don't know. Maybe if I thought about it more, I'd be like, there actually aren't that many great trilogies, and this is one of them. That's great, maybe. But I have not seen it since I was doing my Letterboxd rating system. So now you're making me want to watch it again, just so I can have like more well-rounded thoughts. I remember watching the third one, and thinking that the animation got even better with each iteration. Just the fluidity and the design, the inspirations they're pulling from are really nice. But I still don't really vibe with the slapstick humor very much. It's just not really my thing. So I on personal level, I dock it on those points, although I don't hold it against it. So yeah. There are my thoughts. Okay, so that's arguing with Reddit. If you have any hot takes, y'all who are listening, you got to join our Discord. So if you want to find our Discord, go to mixedmediapodcast.com. There'll be a Discord icon there, and you can join our Discord where we're continuing these conversations throughout the week, in between these podcast episodes. Also, if you're wondering why we haven't uploaded podcasts for a very long time, it's because we're behind on editing. But we're remedying that right now. So if you want to listen to the audio versions of everything, you got to go to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Pandora, TuneIn, I don't know, wherever you find your podcasts. You got to hit that subscribe button so that you get notifications from when we drop new ones, because we're going to be dropping them in a consistent fashion fairly soon. There's tons of backlog content, which means there's hours and hours and hours of stuff for you to be listening to, which is great. But if you also want to support our efforts, you can go to mixedmedia.locals.com, and there you can support us for a measly $5 a month and get a whole bunch of perks and just help us out just a little bit to move a little bit more forward. So with that, I guess we'll go on to the last segment, right? Are we ready?
Yep.
Okay. And Here we go.
Mixed Media Gaming.
Hello and welcome to the gaming segment of the Mixed Media Podcast. Prior to that, we had some really good segments. We had Ben's music segment where we talked to Reshy P, someone who's in the field of music within the games industry. And Irving did his argument with Reddit segment on movies. So now I'll be talking about AI and what it might mean for the future of gaming. Am I supposed to have the thumbnail thing?
I'll pull it up as you speak.
Okay.
Speak, yeah.
All right. Well, I thought was funny was Irving before the podcast asked me what's a game that it could use or whatever as an example. I think I said a Warzone or like that, right? And then the thumbnail is actually like a really funny like Fortnite thing. I was like, okay, kind of surprised me. But,
It's because I made it before you answered because I had to make it.
Oh
Yeah.
Yeah, I answered really late because I was in class, so I saw it pretty late. But anyways, so the reason for my discussion, sort of two AI related things have happened that have been making the rounds kind of recently. I don't know how much of like public knowledge this is. Also, just for anyone who's watching on the recording who doesn't know, it's currently 11:30 p.m. So I'm gonna be rushing this really fast to end this podcast at a reasonable time. So. I don't know how much how well known this is in just the general public, but I don't know. I think it's pronounced Dale. I've also heard Dolly, so I mean I don't know. I feel like I've more consistently heard Dale. Have you guys heard of that? Okay, so it's not like a ubiquitous thing. Interesting. Have you guys heard of Google Lambda? Wow, this is interesting. Okay, well. Dale, as I'll call it, I guess, is a piece of AI software that can generate images based off of prompts. I
have seen some of this. Yes.
Right. Have you seen the good stuff or the bad stuff? Does it look
I just see people who are like using it for like intentionally funny things, like frontal view of Phineas and Ferb.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Right. So it can generate images never seen before, such as that. Right. And that's a cool thing. It's almost like a search engine, right? Where like almost like Google search, or Google Images, I'm gonna say Google Images, except it generates new images, right? You type in whatever you want, and it's pretty good at giving you what you want, right? Now, DALL-E 2 is not, it's currently closed source. Not everyone can use it. It's being developed by OpenAI. I have no idea who these people are. I don't know if their name implies that it'll be open source at some point. I have no clue. But there is currently a version available to use publicly called DALL-E Mini. It is significantly worse. This is the version that anyone can use and type in anything, and their prompts will not be anything. It's like, okay, it's impressive work, but it's not gonna look right. It's just like, at least it looks like kind of close to the prompt. You can give it an oddly specific prompt and you get something kind of close, and it's like, oh, that's pretty good. But then if you go to the subreddit, actually, I was just using it right now because it's very important to understand how what I'm talking about here. You go to reddit.com/r/DALLE2. You spell it DALLE2. All right, you go to this website. Every image you see on this thing is the first image I see is a screenshot of a Discord post. Okay, never mind. But every other image probably is generated by AI, and the titles of the posts you'll see are the prompts that are given. And they are, I don't know, there's something. The accuracy that the AI is able to achieve. Now, obviously, it's not going to be the exact thing you might want, because you are not literally, you don't literally have paintbrush in your hand, and you're not literally, doing the strokes that you want. But at least you'll get something like, I'll give you an example of a prompt. Let's see, I'm just scrolling on this Reddit page. A woman in a dress standing on a cliff, sea waves hitting the rocks, sky is dark and red, wind is blowing, oil painting. If someone showed me this, I would not have realized it's digital. I would have literally thought, oh yeah, that is a woman in a dress standing on a cliff, sea waves hitting a rock, is an oil painting. I would not have realized, right? And it's the same with a lot of these. Some of these I'm like, okay, yeah, these things, some of these are literally impossible, right, to C. So obviously, some computer generation going on there, but yeah, it's really impressive and somewhat concerning. We'll get to that later. The second thing is Google Lambda. So Google Lambda is some AI that Google has been developing. It's a chatbot. If you remember Chatterbot from back in the olden times, it's a sort of, it's kind of like that. You say something to it and it responds back, right? It's just trained on some humongous amount of text, and that's pretty much that. Now, the reason why it's in the news is because an employee claimed that the AI was sentient, and Google placed that employee on administrative leave for the time being.
Okay,
And,
yeah, I heard this too. Yeah, I didn't know what it was Google Lambda. I heard some kind of Google AI thing.
Right, yeah. So sorry if I, sparked any AI-related fears of them taking over the world.
Yep.
Not you, but just hearing that, I'm like, well, I guess we're all in trouble.
I mean, some say that the questions being asked to Google Lambda were very leading into a specific answer that would, generate responses of, leading questions to make to very sort of make it seem sentient, even whatever that means. I don't know. It's outside the scope of this discussion. I'm not going to even talk about what that means. Anyways, so yeah, AI is obviously getting quite advanced. All right. So what does this mean for the games industry? I'm not going to touch over any any of the baggage that comes with it, given that is quite bad. I think is what most people can understand. But aside from that, all right, it was the obvious. I'm not going to talk really much about the obvious implications of things like, perhaps you can currently, we have programs that are able to do text to speech, for example, right? And some games might rely on those to get their character discussions across, particularly ones that don't have high budgets that don't pay for voice actors. The issue with that is it sounds computer generated and it's not the greatest. So you might see AI going to sort of generating convincing speech patterns. And one thing I find interesting is that OpenAI also has a piece of software that allows them to generate a sort of using a prompt to generate more text. And so you might see people use this to sort of reduce repetition in games, where I'm sure you might play a game where you might see certain characters say the same things over and over again, and you might be able to generate slightly different variations, just AI generated. And you can have a human do this, but the issue is that it takes a very long time for someone to just go and create a bunch of variations on the same thing, whereas you can have AI do it, and you can have virtually infinite amounts of possibilities. Then there's also, but those are, I think, the more obvious implementations. I think some things that are more interesting are as tools for developers. So, well, I guess those are tools, but less obvious tools, I guess. So you can imagine things like open world games getting a huge boost from this. So things like billboards and newspapers just being generated instead of having to actually go and make the world feel a lot less empty. Generating, something that can do this at the moment, as far as I'm aware, things like generating interiors for rooms. Now, I'm not saying generating all the furniture models, because as far as I'm aware, there's no good AI capable of generating 3D models. But at least if you give it perhaps some existing 3D models like furniture and stuff like that, perhaps you can create an AI that would be able to rearrange the furniture in a way that makes sense and able to randomly do it for various rooms. And so you can create a sort of more full feeling world. Because a lot of the issues with things like GTA, for example, is a lot of people feel that the buildings just seem kind of empty. You can't enter them, and they might seem like almost lifeless because quite literally there's nothing going on with it. It's just a very large 3D model, with no interior. So you imagine things like, for example, seeing through windows, because a lot of these games will essentially pretend that the glass of the skyscraper is just super reflective and you can't see anything that's going on inside of it at all times of the day, including nighttime, stuff like that. So you can imagine perhaps that you have randomly generated sort of what do you call it, configurations of rooms and whatnot with given furniture. Now, there's the implication of what this means if this were to come to something like music, for example, and generating music, and there's a whole can of worms that I will probably get to later, but I don't have much time right now, so I'm not going to begin to speak on it. However, I will say that the stuff I've seen of AI generated music is garbage. It's all really bad. Everything I've seen at the moment. There have been different techniques.
Interesting, because there are lots of you can find these online. Like here are like 6 pieces, and 3 of them are composed by a computer, and three are composed by humans, and like most people can't tell now. Most people can't tell the difference.
I wonder if those are all from scratch though. Like the AI is given nothing to work off of. Like I wonder if they're given like more like if the AI is like almost like a framework, or here's like 50% of the notes, you kind of fill it in. I can imagine that being something that's more possible. I mean, also doesn't sound like it would sound the greatest, but you can imagine that something would be able to do simple pattern matching, and like, okay, I know that this note works well in between these 2 notes, works well since it has been used in other pieces and stuff like that, and so it won't be offensive probably to people's ears and stuff like that,
Right. Well, they give them like specific composers to study, and then they'll like emulate those composers. The thing that the limitation now though is that nobody has figured out like orchestration, so they'll just spit out like MIDI, and then someone has to go in and orchestrate it, like so if you're going to compare it to like a piece by Chopin or something like that, or not, that's not an example. If you're going to compare, have one that's like in a style similar to like Mozart and Handel, or not Handel, Mozart and Haydn, right? It'll spit out the correct notes, but then someone has to go in and like choose the appropriate instruments to play those notes so that it actually sounds like Mozart or Haydn.
Right, gotcha. Yeah, I saw one interesting case where they tried to treat, since generating images has been going well, someone tried to treat music as an image. Essentially, they took various pieces of music, they rendered out the spectrogram, so as an image, essentially, right? That did not work well. Was the thing. I think because images work very differently than music, and that music is, we're going in one direction to the other direction, and these sort of vertical lines are matching, right? As in, they're say chords, for example, they're overlapping sound. Whereas an image, it's more like probably the pixel and the things around it are more useful. I don't know. It doesn't translate well. All right.
Even if you think about, you can think about the random thought that came to mind. You can think about images in frequency terms as well. It's called a, oh boy, for my optics days, whatever. There's like a transform you can do. You can do it in MATLAB rather easily, and you can create a spectrograph, like you were saying, from the image, and that has to do with the frequency of detail in the image. So if you look at like a rough spot, you're going to get higher frequencies showing up. If you have more of a solid spot, you'll have lower frequencies. If you got a sharp edge, you can actually do edge detection this way and stuff like that. You can get that sort of sharp frequency change or whatever it is in there as well. The interesting thing, though, is if you do that, it'll be completely different from music. Like there would be zero, rather little correlation at all, because images have areas of this or that if you're looking at natural things, right? Whereas music is, like you said, like linear and, it's not the same at all, in short.
Yeah. So that method hasn't worked. Now, what I've seen, I think the best example I've seen is AI-generated gent. If you don't know, it is a subgenre of metal that is rather simplistic. At least the minimum requirements for something to be considered gent. And I actually watched the video. He has a whole video on how he programmed it, and is essentially telling it to play within a scale, pretty much random notes, because it's gent, and I mean, it really can work that way, yeah. So I think the reason why it works so well is because the subgenre literally, pretty much lends itself to just. It's more about the tone of the guitar, I guess, right? That is pretty much the defining factor, mostly of what gent is. So, random notes at random durations kind of works all right with semi-random drum patterns and whatnot. And some people are like, oh well, these because you has a video of like an hour or something like that of just this AI pumping out music or whatever. And so people are like, wow, this is a really unique sound. It actually sounds pretty good. I'm like, yeah, but it's like it seems like it's probably because like I think what's happening is ironically the AI has innovated more because I feel like now okay, maybe I'm gonna offend some gent experts out here. I'm sorry, but I feel like I haven't listened to much. I'll give you that much, but it sounds all very samey. It sounds like it's all the same. So I feel like the AI really didn't have much competition.
I don't enjoy gent style music. I think it's horrible, but that's my opinion.
Yeah. So, but I think it can be useful for generating ideas, like generating, say, world building ideas, just like a general, like, just like give me a lead kind of thing. You know what I'm saying? And then, perhaps a spark inspiration similar to, how some artists might just look around their room for inspiration, look at, I don't know, the water bottle on their desk and makes them think of something, right? Gets the mind going or whatever. Generating ideas and writing, potentially artistic styles and whatnot. As before, I want to end with is that perhaps it means a world of lessening bounds with the open world. Now, this technology has not spread. It's not like AI is not being used really by like this. Is not being used of the scale being used by game development companies. As far as I'm aware, no one's really looking at it. Right, it's sort of just happening somewhat in the background. It was interesting to see how this will develop. I feel like kind of bad because I feel like I kind of like the topic came with quite a bit of doom that I did not address at the same time. But it's 11:48, so I think that's all I'm going to say.
Wow. What a high note to leave on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Honestly, like I'm looking at I've just been scrolling through the DALL-E 2 subreddit, and so much of it creeps me out, gives me like Uncanny Valley vibes. Like it's like,
oh yeah, there's a lot of that.
Yeah, like it's really hurting my brain. It's creeping me out.
I'm just gonna guess the name is supposed to be Dali, like Salvador Dali. That's
what it is.
I'm just gonna guess that's what it probably is.
I think I heard someone pronouncing it as Dale. I was like, oh, okay.
Well, I've never heard anyone pronounce it, but that's just my guess.
Maybe
that's what they're going for.
See, that would be my first guess based on like Wall-E, for example. It's just a one letter change, so but I don't know. Perhaps
makes sense.
All right.
Sweet.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you gonna close out the show then, Nathan?
All right. If you made it this far into the show, thank you. It's been quite the long one. I think I don't know if this is a record-breaking show, or at least approaching probably the record. So that's interesting.
I think we're 1 minute ahead of last week.
Oh yeah. Okay. Well, we also had a technical difficulties at the start, so like maybe we just subtract like 15 minutes or something like that. So okay, we're a bit behind. But yeah, thanks for watching. Thanks for sticking around for this long. Make sure you check out all our stuffs. Check out our locals page if you want to donate. Get all the perks. Check out our Discord where we continue the show essentially after the show, if you will. Yeah, thanks for watching. Bye.
Yeah, thanks for watching and listening.
Thank you for watching. See you later.
Look, tell a man no trouble. I don't want beef, man. I just want vibes. Big man like me, no need for the telephone hype. I got too much getting online. One rule, then dead I'm on site. Wrong move, I bet they gon' ride. No need for the telephone hype, nah. No need for the snoozing. Big whip outside, I'm cruising. Big stick inside, no losing. Better watch out for the snake and Judas is.